Ashton Jeanty, Rico Dowdle, and Jaylen Warren make it into our top 12 running back rankings with fantastic matchups this week. We reveal our full running back fantasy rankings for Week 11 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today, we're getting into our running back rankings for Week 11. We already did our quarterback and tight end rankings on yesterday's show, so you can go back and listen to that if you missed it. And then tomorrow, we will get to our wide receiver rankings. But starting at the top of our list for our running backs, we both have Christian McCaffrey at the top. No surprise there, especially with Jonathan Taylor on bye. So only 2 teams on bye this week, but Jonathan Taylor will be a big loss for those fantasy managers who have been winning week after week with him. And then the Saints are also on bye. So if you've been playing Alvin Kamara, luckily you don't have to play him this week. You could be happy about that. So Christian McCaffrey, running back 1 for us. Devin Achane, we both have at running back 2. Great matchup against the Commanders, and he's been balling out. You have Josh Jacobs at 3. I'm a little bit lower at 6. Bijan, we both have there in the top 4. I have him at 3, I have him at 4. Gibbs, both top 5. And then James Cook for me comes in at number 5. You have him at 7. But the guy I want to talk about is Ashton Jeanty, who makes my running back 7. He's your running back 8. That's probably the highest we've had him ranked since maybe week 1 or week 2, right? He gets the Cowboys this week. Amazing matchup. But is it still an amazing matchup now that they traded for Quinshon Williams? That's a real question, Vinny.
Yeah, they also had a bye week. They also had some heavy hearts, losing one of their defensive young stars there in Marshawn Kneeland. I think you'll see a better Cowboys defensive effort. You'll see an inspired effort there. I don't know if that means they can totally shut down Ashton Jeanty with the personnel that they have, but Jeanty, the way he's got it done, right, Michelle, has been through touchdowns, through receiving. He had the one game where he had 2 receiving touchdowns that were short. I mean, he has the best bet here to score for the Raiders in this game. And he could do that if it's a blowout, if it's a close game, whatever. Jeanty is going to be the most likely Raider to find the end zone, and there's no way that the Cowboys are going to shut out the Raiders in this game. Even if they're taking control, Genty's probably going to get the workload. They're going to probably make sure that he gets 20-plus touches in this game, even if they're trailing, right? That's a good thing about Jeanty. He can still get involved in the passing game. If they put all their efforts into stopping Brock Bowers, or Geno Smith forgets about Brock Bowers again, it's going to all be about Jeanty in this one. So, again, the matchup is solid. Usually you don't make drastic moves to change yourself against the run. To me, Quinshon Williams is actually going to help their inside pass rush a little bit more. They're still a little bit weak up front. So he'll be okay. It just might be sloppy, right? It's the usual Ashton Jeanty game. It could be like 15 carries for like 56 yards and then 5 catches for 30 and a touchdown or 2. So it could just be a little ugly and inefficient, but he's going to get the touches in this game as well to make it worth his while, especially after having a little extra time to rest and him really not being a factor against the Broncos in week 10.
Yeah, and we also like the guy that will be playing on the other team in that game, Javonte Williams for the Cowboys. It was a bad week for him right before the Cowboys bye. It was just 6.8 points against the Cardinals, but he's consistently getting the work. He gets the goal line work. The Cowboys, we know, are better at home. And I mean, I guess they were at home in that Cardinals game, but hopefully the bye really let them breathe for a second, recoup, because this offense was thriving. So hopefully they can come out again and pick up from where they were a few weeks ago. But we really like Javonte Williams against the Raiders this week.
Yeah, he should be playing from ahead in this one. He's a good combination if you're playing DFS for this particular game. I think that's a good stack to go. Javonte Williams and the defense is a very strong way to go for if you're playing the Monday individually. And also just look, you look at Javonte Williams, even when Dak Prescott has struggled, and partly because there's some games where Javonte Williams will pilfer all the touchdowns and Dak doesn't get the scores that would come with his passing yards. So Javonte Williams has been great at the goal line. He's proved what he can do when fully healthy. We haven't seen any hint of Jaden Blue getting healthier, being even effective in this offense. Miles Sanders is just a guy on the depth chart. So really, it's been Javonte Williams' team. He's shown he's healthy. Great pickup by the Cowboys. And again, he should keep it up here. There's no way the Cowboys do not play with a lead at some point in this game, probably in the second half.
Yeah. Now your running back 6 through 10 go Saquon Barkley at 6, James Cook at 7, Ashton Jeanty at 8, Rico Dowdle at 9, and then Javonte Williams at 10. Let's talk about Rico Dowdle here. You have him at 9. I have him at 12 against the Falcons. He did come back to life a little bit last week, right? He still got a big workload with 18 carries, but didn't manage. He could only manage 2.9 yards on the ground. He got a touchdown to save his day because he only had 63 total yards in the game. So it still wasn't like a bad game, 13.8 points, but we're putting him back you're putting him back to the top 10. I have him at 12, like I said. It's a nice matchup against the Falcons. I think he'll be completely fine.
Yeah, the Falcons just gave a monstrous game to Jonathan Taylor. I'm not saying the Panthers' offensive line and Dowdle are the mirrors of that team in particular. I mean, that's a great back with a great offensive line. But the Panthers have been very competent running the ball when they need to and in games where they're close, and they shouldn't be blown out by the Falcons. I mean, the Falcons can probably win this game and should, and don't be fooled by the shutout in the first one. I think the Falcons will do a little bit more back in Atlanta, but still the Panthers should have handled this defensive front. The Falcons are better built to stop the pass, so that's not going to be much that we're going to see. I mean, Terry McMillan can be bottled up downfield, but the running game, Rico Dowdle, that's what the Panthers want to do anyway. That's their identity at this point. Now, one guy I'm really excited about, and I don't know if I shortchanged him, Michelle. It's your guy. And look, I shortchanged Tyler Warren the whole season, and now he deserves some love. He's
Jaylen Warren. Tyler Warren is on bye this week.
Yeah, you're right. But we are talking about running back rankings. So the Warrens, if you have both Warrens, you've been crushing it this year. I'll just say that. We have him at 11. He's actually been a top running back, an RB1 the past several weeks now, including that game where they had all the turnovers against the Colts. He managed to find the end zone twice in that game, but he looked good. He was probably the best Steelers offensive player in the Chargers game. Then now he gets the Bengals a second time. The Bengals are terrible against the run. So, yeah, Warren, whoever you have. I mean, one Warren you're not going to be without. So Jalen, I guess, has to make up for Tyler's scoring this week and be very effective. But really, I did not read this backfield well. Maybe there was some misinformation. Maybe there was some Caleb Johnson went from love early to a steady hatred timeline with him. Kenneth Gainwell, who got the opportunity, had a big game as soon as Warren was not in their overseas game. So again, this Steelers running game and throwing to the back might be their best source of offense right now. So I think they'll continue. They don't want to make it a high-scoring game. They want to run the ball, control it. They don't want to give the Bengals the same opportunity to win a shootout, I don't think, the second time around in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Warren had a great game against those Bengals, 158 scrimmage yards in that game in week 7. So we both have him as our running back 11, so just outside of our top 10. He's right behind Saquon, Kyren Williams for me at 9 and 10. So really, really like Jaylen Warren this week against the Bengals defense, giving up the most fantasy points to running backs this season. And then in that same game, we both have Chase Brown as a top 15 option as well against the Steelers. Chase Brown had his highest rushing yard game of the season against the Steelers a few weeks ago, 108 rushing yards. He did not get involved in the receiving game in that game. He actually had -8 receiving yards. But I like him as well. I like Jaylen Warren a little bit more in this game, but Chase Brown is also a solid RB2 play.
Yeah, I do like Warren because the game is in Pittsburgh. That definitely helps him. He's been rather productive. Again, he had the 2-touchdown game a couple weeks ago against the Colts. And then, look, Chase Brown, I think they figured some things out offensively. We know with Joe Flacco in there, they're going to have a little bit of inspiration because now Joe Burrow's teasing a return in a couple weeks for the Thanksgiving week game. So that would be something if Joe Burrow's acceleration there. Maybe he's motivated back by Joe Flacco is playing really well in his place and taking advantage of the great weapons. So again, Brown is in there, right? I mean, he's in that circle of playmakers with Chase and T. Higgins, right? He has to make plays if the Bengals are going to win, and they're motivated as well because they win this. They swept the Steelers. They're right back, I think, in the AFC North race with a couple to go against the Ravens.
Now let's take a quick break, and then we'll get into the rest of our rankings, including where we have TreVeyon Henderson this Thursday night against the Jets. If Ramondre Stevenson is still out, we'll do that in just a moment. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. This season, it's so important to reach out and check in with friends, family, or even yourself. Just like checking on a teammate or reconnecting with someone you haven't seen in a while can lift your spirits, reaching out to a therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. I've noticed that just simply talking through things, even for a few minutes, helps clear my head and get me back on track. Therapy isn't just for when things are falling apart. It's about staying balanced and growing throughout the tough seasons. BetterHelp matches you with a therapist who fits your needs, and you can switch anytime if it's not the right match. This month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, because taking that step towards support might just leave you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? All right, let's continue our running back rankings. My 10 through 12 were Saquon Barkley, Jaylen Warren, and Rico Dowdle. But then at number 13 comes TreVeyon Henderson for me against the Jets. You're a bit lower. You have him at running back 20. He had a career day last week with 28 fantasy points in half PPR with 147 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had those 2 big rushing touchdowns for over 55 yards each. But he played 84% of the snaps, and no other running back in the backfield saw more than 6 snaps in the game. So I think that's huge. If Stevenson's still out, he's going to keep getting that playing time. Do I expect him to break off 2 long touchdowns? No. But the Jets gave away their pieces on defense, and I think Henderson's a really good play again this week.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I'm just always going to be a little reluctant until I see a few games strung together because the fickle finger of fate is all over the Patriots, and they're kind of all over the place, right, in terms of who has the big games, not just for the running backs and who they incorporate, but also with their wide receivers. So I'm just a little cautious. Clearly, I'm still playing him. You have him as a high-end RB2. I am as like right in the middle RB2 now. I might change that idea. We'll talk about that. I mean, Breece Hall, I think I have ranked higher, but I would maybe think about swapping these guys. I have Breece Hall at 16. We can talk about him a little bit, but yeah, now I'm thinking about the matchup and everything. I might move him up a few spots, but still he's a guy that you have to get in your lineups. I'm at 20 basically because, again, he's a new guy into this mix of seeing significant workload. He's a little bit big run dependent, so let's hope he has a steady game with good carries this week. So I'm hedging my bets, but definitely you're going to put him in your lineup in any league where you have to start 2 running backs.
Let's talk about Breece Hall then in that same game because I wanted to hit on him. You have him at 16. I have him at 20 against the Patriots. I'm a little bit worried that we're both actually too high on him because of how good the Patriots run defense is, giving up the 3rd fewest points per game to running backs, fewest yards per carry to running backs. Now, Breece Hall has been very good the last 2 weeks, getting a ton of volume. So I don't think he's like a must sit, but I actually will be shocked if he's a top 15 play this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough for him for sure because the Patriots are up there against the run. I mean, they kind of displaced the Buccaneers a little bit last week because of Henderson and what they did against kind of the Bucs backups. Bucky Irving was not ready for that one. So when you look at the Jets, Breece Hall's all they have right now. Garrett Wilson has gone from, will he play, to he's going to miss some time with a different injury here. So they really don't have much else here. It's Isaiah Davis and him are going to have to do a lot for the offense. I mean, their wide receiver core, Michelle, is pretty ugly. If you look at who's left, it's just nobody on this team is out there catching passes without Reynolds, without Wilson. It's like Mason Taylor and the running backs basically at this stage. So there's nobody. So Breece Hall, by volume alone, by sheer volume, and just opportunity, he's going to force himself to play. I'm not going to say he's very efficient, and he may not have a big game, but I think his numbers, you just hope he's going to compile by touching the ball enough times.
Yeah, it'd be hard to imagine you are just so stacked at running back you don't have to play him. But if you are, like, don't be too scared to, like, sit him if you need to, if you have these, like, a bunch of guys we've already talked about in the top 12. But he's probably going to be in your lineup. And like Vinny said, with the volume, he should be okay. Now, after your Jaylen Warren at number 11, you had Kyren Williams at 12, Derrick Henry at 13. I have Henry at 15. And then you have Quinshon Judkins at number 14. I have him at 16 against the Ravens. It's been a few weeks since he's had a big game, and 3 of his last 4 games have been disappointments after being so good for so long to start his career. Well, for so long, I mean a few games. But the Ravens on the season, they've allowed the 7th most points per game to running backs. Definitely have gotten better on defense. And Judkins' efficiency lately has really, really been suffering on the ground. So I am a little bit worried about playing him, but I still do have him ranked as a top 15 guy. He still got 22 carries last week.
Yeah, he's going to get the volume. My concern is now the offense has kind of proved with Dillon Gabriel, it's not going to move the ball a lot other than throwing to the tight ends. I mean, that's about it, right? Jerry Jeudy had a little bit more than we expected last week, and David Njoku came back to have an impact, but still the offense stinks for the Browns. And the Ravens are on the road, but I think you're right. They fixed a few things. I mean, they were pretty good overall against the Vikings last week where they just weren't wilting. So I think they're smart enough to say, look, we're going to contain Quinshon Judkins. They can pound him 20 to 25 times. I think what you're hoping for is, like, if you get 20 carries, if you get like 60 yards and a TD, you'll just be over the moon about it. I think you just take it, right? So it's a little brutal here. Derrick Henry versus him in this game, it could be tough sledding for both. We know the Browns' run defense is pretty tough, so it might just come down to the touchdowns for both to really pay off and be where the RB2 plays this week.
Now, we have these guys kind of ranked around similar spots here, and it's all in the middle of the teens, later teens. And it's Travis Etienne against the Chargers, Rachaad White against the Bills. Now, that's if Bucky Irving is apparently at practice today. So we got to see what happens there with him and if he's playing. And then DeAndre Swift against the Vikings. So if you're ranking those guys and, like, the comfortability and the confidence you have in them this week, how would you do it?
Yeah, I think I would go to Etienne first because the Chargers, you can run on them. We saw different guys have nice games against them in the past. I think it's harder to pass on them, and the Jaguars don't have much there. So they're going to have to leave on Etienne quite a bit. He seems to be better responding, and the defense also plays better at home. The running game and defense formula works better for the Jaguars there in Jacksonville. So, the Chargers not a shutdown run defense by any means, so I think he'll get the workload needed. Rachaad White is hard. I might have Bucky Irving right behind Etienne if he had played as well, because, again, the matchup against the Bills is great, but then you figure if they're playing and they're splitting and Sean Tucker's involved, what's going to go on there, especially if they get behind, right? That's going to be a problem if that's the case, and Baker Mayfield's going to have to throw downfield often. So I'm a little bit worried about that Bucs backfield, but still someone is playable, whoever the healthy number one is. And DeAndre Swift, like Kyle Bond guy, is a factor. I do kind of like him as well this week. They're at the Vikings. So, again, I think the Bears are just an offense now where we want to tap into more. They're just more confident about running the ball. They're confident about passing it. So we just have to figure out who's getting the ball from week to week, right? That's been the thing. So I want DJ Moore to fall off. I don't want Luther Burden to have a factor. I want this offense to be a lot about Rome Odunze, Colston Loveland, and the running backs. And then we're starting to look good here with the Bears. So, again, the Bears are solid, but Swift splitting with Monangai really is tough. Rachaad White potentially being committee. So Etienne is the clear choice for me as the better RB2 play of these three.
I actually have Swift as the top ranked guy here at 17, right after Judkins. I think I was actually surprised with how little Monangai did play and how much Swift did play in his first game back after how good Monangai did in that Bengals matchup. But, Swift is heavily utilized. He was heavily utilized as a receiver last week as well. So I like Swift. He got the touchdown taken away from him last week from Monangai, but I think that'll go back to Swift. So I go in with him at the top. I have Rachaad White right after him at number 18. He'll go down if Bucky Irving is back, but we know this Bills defense can definitely be beat on the ground. And then I have Travis Etienne at number 21. So a little bit lower than you on him. He doesn't have a high enough ceiling to risk his low games. Right. And his efficiency's been terrible on the ground. You never know if Tootin is going to take his touchdown. And he's just not involved in the receiving game. So he's just not an exciting play for me. Your rankings, you have Etienne at 18, Rachaad White at 19, and then DeAndre Swift at 21. We both have Kamani Vidal in the middle of those guys. You actually have them right ahead of all of them at number 17 against the Jaguars. I have Vidal at 19. You just never know what you're going to get, right? He's either going to give you a 20-point game or do nothing, but his volume is there. So keep playing him. We're going to get into some of our favorite and least favorite flex running back plays right after we take a quick break.
All right, this episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. More than 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has been your blind side coverage. Need parts fast for project? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks, such as priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5. That's SHNFL, the number 5, for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by FanDuel. And with FanDuel, look, it's an important time in the NFL. We're into week 11, but the NBA is also back full swing. A lot of hot games going on. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets from everything on who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at even bigger payout. It keeps every game excited, especially when your team's making that late rush. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Michelle, it is time to look at our deeper running backs on the board as we close the show now. Kareem Hunt. It looks as though Isaiah Pacheco is going to miss time here. So Kareem Hunt would be the back of choice starting for the Chiefs in Denver, which is not the easiest matchup. Then you have David Montgomery, a tough guy because, again, we're seeing the late season Jahmyr Gibbs tilt once again, where Jahmyr Gibbs is getting the higher leverage touches. Dave Montgomery is clearly running second instead of parallel to him. So how do you feel here? Montgomery in that share against the Eagles or Kareem Hunt this week?
You know what? Right now, I have them ranked back to back. I have Hunt at 23, Montgomery at 24. I think I'm going to swap them because I think if I had to choose, I would go Montgomery because, yeah, Hunt is the lead back for the Chiefs, but that's not really any different than being the second back on the Lions. I mean, in the last two games, Hunt has 9 carries, 11 carries, and it's not like he's heavily used as a receiver either. 1 reception in both of those games. Like, the Chiefs are just not running the ball all that much. And then with the Eagles, even with it feeling like Montgomery's getting very little work, it's still 13 carries, 11 carries, 15 carries. He's still getting a couple receptions a game. So it's almost like his work is more, even though he's not the lead. And the Eagles are a better matchup for fantasy running backs than the Broncos are. So I'm going to lean Montgomery there, but I do think Kareem Hunt's a playable guy just because he is the lead back on the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's very similar for me. I have them one spot higher and Hunt over Montgomery, but I feel a little bit better about Hunt only because he has to be used in the red zone quite a bit, right? Montgomery doesn't have to be used in the red zone, right? They could go to Gibbs, They could throw to their tight end. So it may come down to a touchdown, to be honest with you. Who is a better play this week? And that's very hard to predict with both of these running backs. So puts us in a little bit of a bind. But again, Hunt volume could help him in this game for sure. But the Broncos game definitely will be low scoring than the Lions-Eagles game. Now, Woody Marks is a very intriguing play this week. Now, the split continues with him and Nick Chubb, but Woody Marks is the explosive guy. He can catch passes as well. So they're playing the Titans this week. So it doesn't get much better than that. We'll see if Davis Mills has to start again for C.J. Stroud here. But look, if you're going to take a shot in this really great matchup against Tennessee, I think you do it with Marks. I don't want any part of Chubb. He's kind of like a 5-6 point guy every single week when he doesn't score a touchdown, which is most weeks. So Marks does get in the end zone a little bit more. He has a little bit burst, great receiving skills as well. So I think I'm going with Marks. I would want to play him, take a shot on him as a flex play, but not interested in Chubb at all this week.
Yeah, I'm not interested in Chubb, but I do have Woody Marks ahead of both Hunt and Montgomery. I have him as my running back 22 this week. You have him at 25, so just behind those guys. I love the matchup. Titans giving up second most points per game to running backs behind only the Bengals. And then Woody Marks has had double-digit rushing attempts in each of the last 4 games. And he's scored at least 11 fantasy points in half PPR leagues in 3 of the last 4 games. So I really like him. I think he's clearly the better running back for the Texans to lean on in the backfield. So love his matchup this week. Now, Aaron Jones gets the Bears. Would you rather go with Aaron Jones this week or one of the Seahawks running backs against the Rams? I'm going with Aaron Jones. The Bears are middle of the pack. I know Aaron Jones isn't getting a ton of volume, but neither are either of the Seahawks running backs because they're just killing each other, and the efficiency is bad for them. And, with Walker, he can't score a touchdown to save his life. So I'm going with Aaron Jones over either of the Seahawks running backs against the Rams' #1 defense against fantasy running backs.
Yeah, I think you have to go in that direction, I guess. Like Charbonnet, I still might want to go ahead of Aaron Jones in this one only because he actually looked pretty good last week. I don't know if the game script can be there. Obviously, they were blowing out the Cardinals. They jumped up on them early and basically saw Sam Darnold make a few turnovers. They said, no, we're going to run. We're just going to run, and put this game away, and that's what they did. So I don't think the game script can necessarily fall in that direction, but definitely Walker is basically unplayable at this point. I mean, he is playing behind Charbonnet. We thought it could happen at one point, but Charbonnet got some of the key carries. He actually looked really good. He had some burst runs there, and he had the pay dirt early against the Cardinals. So Walker, Charbonnet not playable. It stinks because I would rather have Jordan Mason solo in that backfield than Aaron Jones. Now Jones kind of muddles things up. I know he did score, by the way, last week. I thought, the Vikings might be competitive when Jones scored the first touchdown the game against the Ravens. That didn't come to fruition. So Jones is always a threat to score, just like Mason is. So I guess you go there also with the point total being a little bit better there in terms of what the Vikings can do against the Bears defense versus Seahawks versus Rams. But again, none of that is really very confident to play this week.
Now, J.K. Dobbins, he got looked at after the game. We'll see if he can go this week. But if he can't go, is R.J. Harvey a good RB2 flex play this week? And we haven't really got to see him in a big role, right? Like he rarely has more than a handful of carries in a game, if that. And we know he can be a receiving back, but the Chiefs are pretty tough. 6 fewest points per game to running back. So how do you feel about RJ Harvey? And then if Dobbins does play, do you just kind of avoid this backfield altogether? Because Dobbins hasn't been putting up points either. And you never know when Harvey's going to steal the touchdowns.
Yeah, it's kind of the reverse and much lesser version of the Lions backfield, except J.K. Dobbins is a power role and he needs a touchdown to come through, and R.J. Harvey basically needs a big receiving play to come through. And look, the Lions get those things on a regular basis from Jimmy Gibbs and David Montgomery. This running game is still a little suspect. The Chiefs are pretty good against the run. I know James Cook had a nice game against them overall last week, but still, or last game, I should say. But again, it's after I just don't know how they're going to work in this backfield. They still have Tyler B-Day, whatever you want to call his name, in there, so they could do some shenanigans with him and R.J. Harvey in some split weird situation. I don't know if they trust R.J. Harvey for a bunch of touches. Maybe they like it that way, where he's a change of pace. So, oh gosh, I don't know. I'd want to be out on Dobbins, but at least Dobbins can maybe get you 8 to 10 points, maybe if you start as an RB2, where I think RJ Harvey needs that big play and or score to really pay off for you.
Yeah, I'm not considering Harvey if Dobbins is there, but
Yeah.
Harvey, if Dobbins is out, becomes, a risky play, but at least he should get some volume. Now, really, really quickly, if you had to pick between one of these three guys for a flex spot, or if you're, struggling at the RB2 spot, would you go Amari DiMercato against the 49ers, Kyle Monagai against the Vikings, or Bill Krosky Merritt against the Dolphins?
Yeah, I'm out on Bill Krosky Merritt. It could be done for him.
Yeah.
It's just too crowded a backfield. I don't know who's going to touch it. I don't know who's going to score touchdowns every week. Dolphins actually showed us something last week in shutting down James Cook, so you can't be totally inspired that they're the defense that we saw prior to the Bills game, the same type. Kyle Monagai, maybe a little bit more counting on a touchdown there with DeAndre Swift still leading the backfield. Amari DiMercato might be the dart throw here just because, again, he's going to get involved in the passing game. We're hoping that the 49ers build a lead here. Bam Knight has been fading with his effectiveness, so replacing James Conner. So you think DiMercato should see a little bit more work there. So hopefully you'll get like 3 or 4 catches for you, maybe like 50 yards receiving or something like that. And then some running and potential for a touchdown. So again, I still think he's a good back. He had that unfortunate blunder several weeks ago with a lost fumble. Otherwise, I thought he might have held the job a little bit over Bam Knight, but then they realized, Bam Knight's not all that good. So we're going back to DiMercato. So again, it's messy, but if you're desperate and you're doing a 1 weeker there for Jonathan Taylor, DiMercato is not the worst situation.
Yeah, I actually have DiMercato at running back 26 right after Aaron Jones at 25. So DiMercato is above guys like RJ Harvey and Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker and Kyle Monagai and Bill Krosky Merritt. So it's not like I'm pumped to start him, but if you needed to, I do think he has upside as a sleeper this week. That will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you to the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow to reveal our wide receiver rankings for week 11. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.